friends, fellow bakers. We tried to get a live Facebook video up and it wasn't cooperating, so here I am. I've started slightly without you, I hope you don't mind, but you'll want to turn your ovens on, 350 degrees if you're joining me now, and hopefully you've got your mise en place, your ingredients all set to go by now, so you've had a little extra time and an extra cup of coffee. So, my name is Lori Hoban of the Right Fit Personal Training and Wellness, and I also teach yoga, and I'm a brand ambassador for Paper Chef. Now, Paper Chef has traveled to every country with me, more places than my boyfriend actually. It's a wonderful product, and we're going to use it today for the muffin liners. I hope you have some to be able to join me, but if you don't, you'll be posting hopefully your muffins when they're done to our fitness page, Boulevard Club Fitness page, and you will receive some of these lovely little liners. So we'll start with the dry ingredients today, and what I'm using is the muffin recipe that I use is completely gluten-free. So you get to choose what flours and whether that's going to apply to you or not. You can make this nut-free. I am not today. I am using some chocolate chips that actually chocolate chunks, which don't have any particular additives or known allergens, but if you're going to be mixing that with the nuts, that I would just save those for another time. So we're going to use a combination of almond flour and quinoa flour, and the reason I like to combine it is because it gives a beautiful moist texture. Each flour has its own properties, but both are very, very high in protein and fiber and many other minerals. So the quinoa flour has a little bit more fat to it, believe it or not, and so I just love that full fat feeling when it comes to particularly gluten-free baking. I don't add any other starches, additional starches, so we'll start with that. We're starting with the dry ingredients just because I have one whisk and I don't want to get it wet, so it doesn't really matter the order you start in, but a whisk is always a great thing to use. And by the way, don't take any whisks, so wear your mask, social distancing, and just stay healthy. So we have a combination of baking powder. Again, I use the gluten-free variety, so non-aluminum, non-GMO baking powder, and also baking soda. So it's 1 teaspoon of each. I've got 1 cup in total of flour, so half a cup of quinoa flour, half a cup of almond flour, and I'm just going to gently whisk that together. So there are 3 dry ingredients, and I want to whisk it because I want to make sure that my baking soda and baking powder get mixed entirely with the flour, and the flour itself, that it's actually nice and light and airy. You don't have to sift these gluten-free flours, so that's an additional bonus here. It's going to go very quickly for you. So I've got my 3 ingredients, the flour, baking soda, and baking powder, all ready to go. I have in advance just pureed the bananas, and I just used one of these gorgeous little kitchen utensils that makes potato mashers or banana mashers a thing of the past. So I want to make sure I'm using a small muffin liner today, small muffin tin, and I want to make sure that I don't have a big lump of banana that could make you feel like the muffin's not really cooked through fully. So I've just pureed the bananas. I'm ready to add the next ingredient. So I've got an egg, organic, omega-3. I want to just whisk that lightly, just to make sure there's no white strings hanging around. It's going to get mixed a little bit more as we go. I'm going to add that to the banana mixture. And I love using a little spatula to make sure that I get every last little bit. So just making sure all of the egg gets into the pan here. And then I'm going to go from there to adding applesauce. So the applesauce replaces the fat 1 for 1 in my baking recipes. So sometimes I feel really luxurious and I might put an olive oil or something in depending on whether I want that taste. But for now, applesauce is fantastic, of course low in fat. This is organic applesauce, and we're just going to add that in lieu of the fat. And these little containers are half a cup, which is exactly what I want to use. And they're pre-measured, so it's really a matter of convenience, and you're not wasting a whole container of applesauce idling along in your fridge. So super handy. And so from there, I just want to, I didn't call for it in the recipe, but I love to add a little bit of vanilla to most of my baking. So just in it goes roughly a teaspoon of vanilla. And again, by doing so, you can avoid using sweeteners, a lot of sweeteners, or as much sweetener, and that brings me to my next point. So we're going to add sugar. This is basically cane sugar, but the brand that I absolutely love, it's not so much the brand, but the name of this particular sugar, and I don't know if you can see it, is Sucanat, organic Sucanat. And I just absolutely love the way that it's not as processed and the taste of the molasses comes through in the baking. The texture is great. You could also use date sugar. This is a ½ cup. And I generally say that you can use a ¼ cup to ½ cup. I'm not going to use all of this. I find because of the bananas, it's actually quite sweet enough. And because of the chocolate chips as well, you're adding in that sweetness. So I'm just going to use my whisk again to whisk this up, and just making sure that the sugar is absorbed completely. You might just want to use your whisk a little bit to get the edges, make sure it's all mixed properly and well. And again, just lightly whisking that. And I find by whisking, as opposed to just mixing or stirring in, get a nice, well, you get a lighter texture. And gluten-free baking typically isn't that light. This is quite a dense tasting muffin. Texture is quite dense. But again, just making sure that all the sugar is dissolved, the egg is completely emulsified in here. And we're ready to add in some of the dry ingredients. So I'm just going to add the dry ingredients directly in here, and I'll do it gradually. I don't need to overmix here, so as long as I'm actually getting all the flour mixed up. And I tend not to add the flax until the end, because it does thicken the batter quite quickly. So the chocolate chips or chunks and the flax is going in next. The other add-ins are basically optional. So I've got some walnuts prepared here to add in. You could use pecans, that would be really lovely. You could add some chia seeds into the mix. I'm going to sprinkle them on top. And you could just about do anything. Sometimes I add hemp hearts to make it even a lighter, more buoyant texture, and also just for flavor, I love the nuttiness of hemp hearts, and they add a nutritional boost as well. So we're going to add in the flax seed, the walnuts. I would keep them quite small, especially if you're using small muffin liners. So I'm just going to gently mix that in, more of a folding. I want to make sure that I don't get one big bite of flax seed here. So it's ground brown organic flax seed. And just remember to keep your flaxseed in the refrigerator or freezer, in fact, so that it stays fresh. It should be in a darkened bag, so something that doesn't let the light in, that's very important. And we're just going to mix that up and then add the chocolate chips. Woo. Now I've got chocolate chunks here. I might just decorate with those, but I've used organic dark chocolate chips here. And because it's a small muffin that I'm making, the chocolate chunks would take up pretty much the entire muffin. So these are carefully measured, probably a ¼ cup, whoever uses a ¼ cup of chocolate. You can add in as many as you like. You just want a little batter in between the chocolate chips. So I find they're quite heavy. They fall to the bottom pretty easily, so you want to maybe just stir that up every once in a while, and you're ready to go. So we're ready to go with the batter. It's all mixed in, and you can use whatever you have to actually scoop it into the muffin tins. I'm using this little 1/8 of a cup measurement tool, easy to say. And so I'm just going to start doing that right now. And then how you decorate your muffins is entirely up to you. So you might sprinkle things on top. You can slice a banana really thin, put that on top, make sure it's really thin because you don't want a big mushy slice of banana on top. But basically this is going to go into the 350-degree oven for, depending on the size of your muffin itself, these are going to take about 25 to 30 minutes. And again, it depends on your oven as well. So I'm going to use this spoon to just guide that into the pan. So they always say don't overfill your muffin liners or muffin cups. I kind of like to fill them right to the max. I like a big juicy bit of muffin, and especially again if you're using these small muffin liners. So of course you're going to fill this whole pan, but again how you decorate it is up to you. So you can add a walnut on top, just plunk it right down. You can add a chocolate chunk on top, or a few chocolate chunks. You can add this banana slice, as I mentioned, and then typically I will sprinkle a little bit of chia seed on top of that. And best to just use your fingers so you can spread it around, and it gives a nice little crunch, an additional nutritional boost on top of your muffin. And rather than go through the filling the whole muffin cup for you, which would just be a misuse of our time, I would like to show you the finished product. So straight out of the oven, here they are. And the beauty again of the Paper Chef liner is that they basically just jumped right out of the liner itself. So you have very little waste, and then you can actually just throw this right in the composter. So it's biodegradable. It's made from the product is made from eucalyptus, so it's also sustainable. They don't cut the tree down to actually prepare this for you, this beautiful product. So there's your muffin. It's a gorgeous little muffin, intact. You don't have to actually scrape it with your teeth off of the muffin liner. And again, I've decorated them in 3 different ways here, so really you have a choice of how you're going to present them to your family, or maybe you're keeping them all to yourself, and that's absolutely okay. And I hope you've enjoyed this little mini session with me in the kitchen baking, which is what I love to do. So if it gives you joy to be in the kitchen, it's almost like a meditation. You can go into the kitchen and calm your nerves and settle your anxiety in minutes just by getting in and just using beautiful, wholesome ingredients, and put some tunes on and just enjoy yourself. Thank you so much for joining me today in the kitchen. Bye for now.